Thanks for coming to the Dash Behavioral Model meeting, December 8th. Go ahead and present my screen here and turn off my camera. So hopefully my camera goes off there. So want to say hi to everyone. And, these are the things we talked about last week. I guess people are still joining. Give people a minute here.
I'll admit them so you don't have to be distracted.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Awesome. So I'll be heading back up to Redmond, not this Saturday, but the next Saturday, and I'll be in Redmond for a few weeks. So I'll be up there.
Just in time for the holidays, huh?
Yep. I have family up there.
Yep.
Are we doing that? Okay. Yeah. So from the last week, we kind of went over the question yesterday in the Dash community meeting about how we choose that egress port, and I don't know if we need to recover it in this meeting. Did anyone miss that conversation yesterday? If yes, raise your hand or just say something.
I missed the conversation, Christina.
You missed the conversation. Okay. Anyone else on the call? James, did you miss it? James Lowe, Acton.
I think I also missed it.
You missed it?
Yeah,
okay.
I actually left a little early. I had to be in some other calls.
Okay. All right. And then I also have that internal Azure DevOps item to continue the discussion about the space for IPv4 and IPv6 and all that. So I have that going on as well. So let me stop presenting this screen. I'm going to present a different screen, and let me stop sharing this screen. And give me one. Thanks for your patience. I'll do this. Okay, remind me later, GitHub. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so last week, and Reshma can help me out here, but there was a conversation around, you guys had said, the deployment topology for Microsoft would be helpful when, packets were coming into the DPU and transiting the ports, and how do we select the egress port? And I needed to take this to the SDN team, et cetera. And a DPU is different than an appliance, than a smart switch, and how are we going to choose? And I did take to the SDN team, and luckily, Gohan and Prince joined the call yesterday and pointed out that in the Sonic HLD here, in this documentation, if you go down to 3, I think it was 3.3.5, something like that. Let me scroll down. Keep going. Underlay routing. Here we go. So it talks about whether it's an appliance or even a smart switch. This was how we were thinking that the egress port would be selected, et cetera, and this section here. And it turns out that, we maybe needed a little more clarity that was going to come from, I believe Prince was going to add a little bit more clarity into this part of the document. But we were talking about, okay, do we, because we wanted to update the destination MAC and BMV2, and do we need a full prefix table, full routing? Are we getting a full routing table, full LPM lookup table? Are we trying to be a router? Can we optimize, blah, blah, this long conversation, right? And so we figured out that we maybe want to update this section here to talk a little bit more about that. So wanted to let you guys know we did kind of follow up with that conversation there. Did I get that right, Reshma?
Yeah, perfect, yes.
Okay. Hanif, does that make sense?
Yeah, watch this space, right?
What's that?
Yeah. I said, watch this space.
Yeah, and we were talking a lot about ECMP, right. Are we going to do fully flexible ECMP? And Gohan was like, okay, well, then maybe, we'll look at some proposals to move forward.
Sure. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, great. So that was that conversation. And then let me flip back to a different set of notes that I had. Because, DPU's card's different. Card's just a card. But, when you're throwing a bunch of them into a switch, then it becomes a different conversation. So anyway, and then
Yes, the switch will become different conversation, but this is good at the moment since we're only discussing standalone.
Yeah.
Yeah, one
So,
other thing that happens in a switch is that none of these DPU ports are exposed. So in other words, they are not at the front. The front panel ports are only the switch ports, the
yeah.
switch ASIC ports, right? So that's where basically the idea.
Yeah, exactly. So then last week too, James Lowe picked up, you remember how we were talking about having a work item in the behavioral model to pick up that simple routing and MAC work item? Do you guys remember?
The simple routing and MAC
Yeah.
in the Dash pipeline, right? For
Yeah.
outbound.
Yeah. So we had created that work item here in the behavioral model, basic underlay routing BMV2 to handle MAC. And so James Lowe offered to pick this up here. So James, did you have any questions about this while we were on the call?
Yes, I'm working on this one now.
Sure. Did you have anything specific you wanted to talk about or ask about?
Yes.
I'm curious, but shouldn't we get resolution from Gohan first to do any kind of underlay routing or any kind of routing?
Yeah, nothing will go through without Gohan's approval for sure, and we can certainly have him as a reviewer and approver resource.
It's just that right now we don't even know what the behavior should be, right? There are options, but it sounds a little premature to start cutting it without the actual exact behavior that needs to be implemented. I don't know. That's just the way I look at it.
Simple routing, okay.
You can definitely add something there, but
Christina, it is similar to the previous conversation where Prince is about to update that section with some more details. And as it gets added, then if James can start looking into it and now and then watch for the changes that are coming there. And then while implementation, he can refer to the latest from Prince.
Okay. Well, I wanted to say thanks for James for giving it a swing.
Yeah, James, this is Reshma from Intel. If you need, we can collaborate on this as needed.
Okay, sure.
Okay, great. So we added that one, and then let's see here. I know that 289, I don't know if PR 289 needed a volunteer or not. I believe Anton said it did, but I don't know if it belongs to behavioral model. It was.
Sorry, 289.
Yeah, 289. Was it 289? I think it was. Yeah, here. Chris, does this belong to behavioral model?
No.
Okay, all right.
General one.
It's just general. Okay, all right.
Yeah, and it's not a bug. It's really just sort of paving the way for a little more self-maintaining, build environment.
Okay.
It's a nice to have.
Quick question on the Docker, Chris. Right now it's x86. Is there any plans for any other platforms like ARM or things of that nature?
Well, what is let's see. First of all, this is just a behavioral model, right? So the intention of all these artifacts are just to do a simulation, I guess, on a PC. And I guess there's an assumption that x86 maybe, I don't know if we need to be able to simulate it, run the simulations in other let's say, server or workstation kind of environments. I don't know. Is there a demand for that?
I guess my question was actually more on the SAI Build Docker image, right? More than
SAI
anything
Build?
else. Yeah. I mean, right now, from what I can tell, it's targeted at x86.
What part of the SAI Build is x86 specific? Do you mean the SAI headers or the SAI Thrift Server?
I don't recall. I have to check that again.
Probably the SAI Thrift Server might have some assumptions, but I don't know if there's any x86 specific. I can't say that word.
Specificity.
Thank you. My Titanic tongue got in the way. That's an inside joke, people. So I guess if there's a specific problem you identify, it'd be good to flag it, and and maybe figure out if there's a motivation to do something about it. But anyone is welcome to enhance things to work on different platforms if they want.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be a case of running the SAI Thrift Server on an ARM server, right?
Right.
But let me get some specifics, because I don't recall exactly the error I had, and maybe you would know right away about it. So let me get
sure. And it might actually point all the way back to the SAI repository itself, where the SAI Thrift Server, all that code really lives there.
Sure.
And I'm just borrowing it, so to speak. So that might be a good conversation to eventually elevate to that community. And if you come up with some improvements, that would be awesome.
Okay, so it's more Wednesday question, I guess, than a behavioral model, right?
Yeah, but it's okay to flag here.
Okay, thanks.
I'm trying to remember where the SAI repo is. I have a link to it. I just gotta. I don't have it handy. Okay.
opencompute.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe. Okay. Yep. All right, and we don't have Marian here to check on his work items here. And I know, Niraj, you're a little bit new to what we're doing here, but what we're doing here is trying to create a behavioral model to run test cases, not on hardware necessarily, but virtualized. And so this is our project and our work item task list that we all work on. And down below are the items we've completed, and then the bugs we've solved, and then the items that still need work, if that makes sense. And then as we go through, we try to get resources to figure out how to get this moving forward. So if you have any questions, let us know. Yeah.
No, I see the priority also. So I'm assuming the priority 1 is what we are picking up first, and then going to the priority 2 and 3, right?
Yeah. To me, the priority is just getting it working. And so I think we would, we need Chris, we need the simulator, the compiler, the, kind of everything. And a lot of it's in P4, right, Chris?
Well, no, the data plane model is in P4, but then the platform elements like BMV2 itself, which is C++ code, and then there's the compiler tool chain to handle the new language constructs. So that's P4C. So there's P4C compiler, again, behavioral model, and then our data plane code. And those are all the moving parts.
Yep.
Well, and then the APIs on top of all that, right? All the client software, etc.
Yeah. So it's kind of a big project, Niraj.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And so, yeah. And if anyone has bandwidth to pick things up, just let me know. So. And so since Marian's not here, this is about all I have for the week, unless you guys have something you want to talk about specifically.
I just wanted to continue the conversation I started yesterday with a little more clarity. I brought up in yesterday's meeting the desire to have a few KPI metrics readable so that during testing we can understand the platform. And I just pasted down to the chat 2 metrics that Mircea indicated would be very useful for him. And that would be the DPU data plane compute utilization. So you might think of that as, DPU percentage loading, and DPU data plane memory utilization. And the reason those are of interest would be as we're creating really, really large scale tests, it can be very useful to see how close we are to 100%. And we provide that feedback even to, the vendors, engineering teams, and say, we're running this test and we're getting up to 90% or 95 or 80. It's valuable. And if we could consider these two items, and maybe there'll be other ones that come forth, as readable through the SAI layer and not have to depend on Sonic for all statistics, that would be valuable. In fact, Sonic wouldn't necessarily present these anyway because they're not really part of Sonic platform.
Yeah, didn't Gohan say Sonic was operating system and SAI is the hardware? Or the ASIC, I mean?
Yeah, and Gohan even confirmed, he said, yeah, we probably do need to start thinking of some new items like this that would be at the SAI layer. So I just want to put that out there for people to think about. At some point, maybe after people, if they have any feedback or reactions, maybe we can put together a mini spec and propose a new SAI API for this. And I'm not a SAI API guru, so I probably want people who know more about, let's say, the way things are done to be involved in that effort.
So I've not been a part of that community in the past. Has anyone else on the call, or they know how to do that?
Yes. Sorry, I missed the last sentence. We want to propose.
Well, yeah. So we have some certain SAI API, Dash-based SAI APIs that we've been slowly merging into SAI upstream.
Right.
And it seemed like this would be an opportunity to add a new API type. I don't know what we would call it.
Attributes, right? Okay.
Yeah, like DPU platform attributes or something that are probably read-only. But maybe there'd be a case for some read-write attributes at some point if we want to control the platform a little bit. So I think this would fit into that effort of the general effort of adding new fixed Dash related APIs.
So, this makes sense. Yeah, this makes sense, Chris, that, some of those things, and then I guess, continuing the conversation from yesterday about the CRM also, right? CRM is one method to do it, right? So
yeah, CRM could even pull these right later in Sonic, right? But for testing, it would be valuable to have. So I'd be happy to help in this effort. I'm just looking for, is there a general consensus that seems useful? These two simple items. Is there anyone who feels like they can't be provided or they don't make sense in their platform, for example?
Chris, this is John.
John.
I think that, providing some kind of memory and maybe some kind of like DPU, like load kind of information is useful. I think it's the memory one, I don't think is as much of an issue, but the load one might be very difficult to interpret what it actually means because, like, for example, say, the DPU is running at like 50% of its capacity, processing capacity. Like, that's under like the current like offered, load. But like every kind of like load, like, like V6 might take more processing capacity than V4. So like, it's hard to know like what the number really means, because it's very variable depending on what, what's being loaded onto it.
Yeah, I agree. I know it's like a can of worms, but it'd certainly be nice to have a red light on your dashboard saying oil is too hot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think that's like doable. I think that's doable. I think like that, like if it's like a number that's like a percentage or something, like it's just really kind of giving you sort of like an idea of where things are rather than like knowing like with certainty if it says 50%, that you could like double the offered load of exactly the same kind of traffic, and that it'll fit, it'll work, and it'll fit.
Sure, understood. In fact, there's going to be a lot of heuristic results, and I imagine if we had these two numbers available on every platform, as we tested different platforms, we'd probably have graphs showing here's this test we ran, and by the way, here was what these two numbers indicated. And it's just information, right?
It would almost be like you get the output or the result or the graph or whatever, and you'd almost have to give it back to John or somebody and say, okay, here's what we saw. You tell me what it means.
Yeah.
Because of the complexity of what may be transiting the ASIC at the time.
Yeah, it's just,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it could be useful, because there's no way that the developers are going to be able to trial every use case. And so I think it's useful to say, hey, I didn't know I was going to get up to 95% in this use case. I'm concerned. I better look. And the network operator might say, oh, my Grafana dashboard is giving me goosebumps. This KPI is really high. Should I be concerned? So
this is related to the not the hardware tables, right? It is the compute, the memory that we're talking about, dynamic memory utilized by the software, right?
This is not meant to be covering the general purpose CPU. And I know that itself is a problematic statement because
on the DPU itself, yeah.
Yeah, but there may be even implementations that don't even distinguish. Like maybe there's one core out of 128 that happens to be the control CPU, but the overall stats, how do you lump them all together and average them or produce some number? I don't know. But at least it got a conversation going about it, and there's no urgency here. But I think as we talk about this over time, I think it'd be useful to come up with something, at least see if it sticks.
Yeah, as we get further down the line.
I think one of the things we need to really, as I was saying probably yesterday also, there is a little bit of different mindset now, because what happens is that we had external CPUs all along. And if we have here with embedded CPU, which essentially is, very specific to say, DPU, which has an interface through SAI, and if you want to have this one be controlled or at least be accessed through SAI, all the data, right? All the hardware related telemetry, whether it's, CPU load or whether it's basically utilization of, certain things or other things, for example, right? We were talking about like power supply and all of those things. So if we want to have this thing, then essentially, we need to have that thing be approached through SAI itself. That would make sense, because of the fact that it will vary from one vendor to the other. It will not be a different thing. So I think this is something that we can probably have an item to discuss and then come up with some conclusion as a community, right? And then say, okay, this is what we want to proceed.
Okay, good. Well, it seems like there's consensus that it's a good topic, and there's probably going to have some ongoing debate about the best way to approach it.
Okay. Great. So let me think here. I think that is about all I had for the day until we can get Marian on the call to update his items. I can try and get with him separately. I've had Yusuf's kind of been helping going through closing the items. When you have an issue, you actually have to go in and close the issue, and then you have to actually change the status as well. So if you see anything weird coming through your email from GitHub, that's just us trying to comb through and close the backlog. So that's just us.
Yep. Christina, I know I missed the last work group meeting, but I had a couple of kind of like follow-ups. I wasn't sure if we had time to go through a few of them.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
You tell me.
Yeah, sure. Right now, the notes that I took, let me go ahead. Can we look at number 83? For the XN tracking, XN in simulator.
Connection tracking, yeah.
Yep, connection tracking. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Connection. Yep. With that, there was no update on the comment that I left on that. So I wanted to see, with having the majority of our folks here, is there any update around this?
The last update I had is that the way we build Dockers has changed. Marian has to update his PR.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
so he
gotcha.
has
So
to.
it's
We have to check back with him. Yeah, and so he's not here today. So that's
Okay.
that one. Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it.
Mhm.
And then there's just about 2 others that don't include Marion here.
Mhm.
What about number 90? So enforce connection rate limit per ENI.
This one's interesting because I think it'll be further down the line, because if we're trying to enforce a connection rate limit, we needed to have BMV2 working, right, guys? Let's see here. Because Kashav is, I think he's no longer with the team.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to look through these notes here.
Is a new connection setup rate even something someone would want to enforce?
Enforce connection rate limiting per ENI. Someone wanted this in the P4 pipeline. Can this be tested? So meter
Sounds like a
on
challenging
and
thing to test in BMV2 to me.
And oh, Andy knows of a sample program to show this. Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's.
And we had 2 types of meters. Yeah, direct and indirect index-based meters. So we needed to implement connection rate limiting, then we'll have the answer. So we're not even at the point where we're implementing connection rate limiting, right?
I mean, the BMV2
I don't think we're
packet
here
rate,
yet.
The BMV2 packet rate limits might be low enough that, like, unless you did a connection rate limit of 50 per second, you might not notice the difference between packets not being processed and new connections not being added in BMV2. I'm exaggerating a bit on the low rates, but its packet rates are not stellarly high.
Yeah. And then there was going to be a P4 meeting. So I think we're just still kind of in wait mode on this. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So is that a wait mode just basing off of having a finalized BMV2, or?
In the P4 work group, requirements were defined. Can existing mechanisms like meters be used? Christina's supposed to check the P4, and I did. I put all those in here. Yeah, I think this one's just a wait mode still.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. And then the last one?
Last one that I have here. The connection in compiler number 82. It's marked as shipped. Can we close? I may have already reviewed that one.
Okay, all right. Let's see here.
This is
Can we mark as closed? Chris said. Mark to ship. Can we mark as closed? Chris. Oh wait, this isn't Chris's. This is Marian's. Yeah.
Oh, this is another Marian one. Okay, I didn't tag it in my notes as Marian's.
That's okay. Yeah, we can mark. Yeah, we can close it. Sounds like.
Okay.
This looks like add-on miss, right? That's probably already implemented.
New table properties such as add-on miss, idle timeout with auto delete, la.
Okay.
Idle timeout. Okay.
Okay, so this one is good to close.
Yeah.
Or okay.
So. Yeah.
All right. So do you want me to go in and close, Christina, or are you good to close?
Yeah. Okay, we just make a comment saying discuss with the community. Good to close.
All
Something like that. Yeah. You guys understand my shorthand. Blah blah blah. Okay. Okay. Thanks, Yusuf.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything else for today? Or Andy, did you have anything from P&A or P4 you wanted to bring up?
I mean, we're planning a updated P&A spec release before Christmas 2022, but nothing, not except for, I guess, some encryption proposal in there. There's not terribly a lot of new things, but if you're interested in that area, feel free to check out the release spec after Christmas.
Cool.
We're planning another one in April 2023 before the next yearly P4 workshop as well, since we didn't get as far as we wanted to this by Christmas. Still working.
Awesome. Okay, anyone else on the call? Any Q&A before we end it for the day? Oh, let me look in the chat window here. Oh, Niraj needed to drop. Anything else, you guys? So I'm also wondering, I'll probably send out a survey around the weeks around Christmas. I'm not sure what kind of time you guys take off during the month of December. So I know I tend to take a lot off because I usually don't take vacation during the year. So I'll probably send out a survey.
Sure.
See what you guys want to do. But I'm going to stop the recording, and you can always reach out to me, my email, my Teams messaging,